thank you to. So do you pronounce it Hacjivah? What's the best way to pronounce it?
So my name is Hacjivah, but everyone actually pronounces it Akiva for some reason. Yeah.
Oh, really? I like Hacjivah.
Yeah.
That's an easier name for me. Well, welcome, Hacjivah. It's really great to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Absolute pleasure, mate. It's a big honor for us to host you, and thank you for giving us of your time. It's appeared on us. Can you see? Yeah. Oh, there you are. You're welcome back. We were very excited when our cousin Greg said that you'd be happy to join us for a chat and tell us a little bit about your life, tell us a bit about your career, how things are going in South Africa, a bit of your story, and of course a bit of your Jewish story as well, which is pretty exciting. And obviously, once again, welcome to everyone who's joined us. It's been a while since we've been on Zoom. In Melbourne, we had quite a lengthy lockdown period, so we had a lot of Zoom events. But the last few months, we've fortunately been able to sort of resume life in a way, as it was before COVID, and so it's sort of our first Zoom event back since our lockdown. So it's good to be back and good to see some familiar faces. How are you guys going in South Africa? What's the story there at the moment?
We currently in lockdown now. It's our second massive lockdown because the cases has gone up, second wave. So we're just completing that, and hopefully everything will drop so we can go back to normal.
I hope so, mate. I have my brothers in Cape Town is telling me that it's been pretty intense in South Africa. Things unfortunately not looking good.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy. A lot of deaths. People at first, people are not taking the pandemic very seriously. I think with the second wave, everyone's taking it serious, and yeah.
Yeah, look, we're praying for you. We're praying for the whole world, and let's hope we can get this under control.
Yeah, thank you very much, man.
So look, Hacjivah, we asked you to join us because as everyone I think who's joined was fascinated to hear about your journey to firstly in your sporting career. I mean, I believe you're passionate about sports, not only just rugby, but really about professional sport. And I'm sure it's not an easy thing to be a professional sports person. So tell us a little bit about your story, and then maybe as we go through, do you mind if people type some questions a bit later on if they had any questions they wanted to ask you?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. I don't mind. Yeah, so basically, my name is Hacjivah Dayimani. So I was born in Cape Town. 9 siblings. I'm the third born of all those kids. Nigerian dad, South African mom, who's a traditional healer, and my dad is the Jewish one, Nigerian Jew. Yeah, so obviously my life has been quite different to most of the rugby players in South Africa. I came up very unfortunate background. So I stayed with my mom my whole life while my dad was in Nigeria. So my mom was obviously very struggling and unemployed. And she tried to give us the best life. And eventually I went to stay with my grandmother in the Eastern Cape, which is the other part of the rural areas, and got there and found the sport rugby. It was after 2007 World Cup where I saw Brian Abana caught the intercept try, and he just ran, and the way he dove on the try line, that just fascinated me. I wanted to do the same thing. So I went to rugby trials, and then the coach asked me, "What position do you play?" So I was like, "I play Brian Abana." And he's like, "Oh, Brian Abana. So what position is that?" I'm like, "I don't know." And Charles didn't go well because I was so confused because all I wanted to do was just dive. I was like, when do you get to that part where I have to dive, and it was like getting tackled. I didn't enjoy it, and I never went back, and then eventually when things got tough in the Eastern Cape, eventually I hiked to Joburg to go look for my father, found my father, I stayed with him, and then I started playing rugby. And it was very difficult because as I was getting good at rugby, my dad was very strict. He was very religious. Like rugby games on Saturday, he told me, "You're not allowed to play rugby on Saturdays. It's impossible." And it was just like he said to me, "If you want to play rugby, you must play on Sunday. If you're really that important, they can change the game on Sunday for you." So it was like it was a hard battle with my father for many years. Where Friday nights after school, I had to be home at 2:00 to prepare for Shabbat. Saturday will come, Saturday night. Only Sunday I had freedom, and that was like most of my life. Eventually, I was like, you know what? I want to follow my passion, and I ran away from home. I literally left home, and I went to a different school where they gave me a scholarship. Was President High at the time in Johannesburg, and got there, played some games, and they loved me. And as I was playing games, I got scouted to go to another school, JP Boys, and they offered me accommodation, and they offered me hostel, and you pay for everything. Because I told them my circumstance, I'm like, listen, I don't have parents, I don't have money, I don't have anything. Can you guys help out? And they're willing to help out. And eventually, it all worked out for me. And my dad wasn't very happy with this whole thing. It was very tough. It's very tough being Jewish and playing rugby, because some days we have, like in September, we play the Curry Cup, and it will be during the fast. And now you have to choose: are you gonna go play semi-finals, or are you gonna fast? And it's or during Pesach, which is like during the Easter festivals at school. I had to play while I was observing Pesach, and it was very hard, because when you're not eating rice and all this stuff, your body just has no energy, And the coaches understood. They'd be like, no, just play 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then whenever you're feeling like you can't anymore, you just come off, And when they went to professional level, it became different, because now it's like they don't really care about your religion. They just, we have to play and we have to win. And I obviously made the decision. I was like, listen, I'll just pull myself out of the team. So I think the past two years, we've played a couple of games during the Curry Cup during the fast, and I'll just, pull myself out and withdraw myself and be like, listen, guys, next week I can't come. Gave you guys notice 3 months ago I can't play, and the coaches will understand, and it's something I'm very blessed and fortunate with the team I'm playing with. They understand the law, especially now with the food. It was very tough at first, because just like a lot of Christian guys, and they'll like eat pork and eat whatever, and I would come there and I'll be like, oh, I can't eat this, and I wouldn't eat, And luckily our team manager was Muslim, and he doesn't eat pork. So I told him, listen, can you please just get me like something different, It doesn't have to be kosher, it just doesn't have to have pork, And then they're like, we'll make something happen for you. And one thing I realized was that things started changing as I started becoming a more experienced player. I think when I was still a junior, I never had my way. I would make demands, and they were just like, who's this kid? And as I started playing regularly, they started listening to me, and they were like, oh, no, don't worry, we'll take care of it. We just want you to perform. And so that's my life in a nutshell. With my family, basically, I'm the first kid to matriculate. Out of all the kids, I'm the first kid to finish school. My older brother drop out, younger brother drop out. The family's part of gangsterism. So for me, it's like rugby was a way out for me. I'm very fortunate to play rugby, and I feel like to many people, they might not see it as a big achievement, but to me and my family, it's like the biggest achievement. I'm like the Bill Gates to my family, because many people judge you based on what they see. They don't judge you based on what the depth you start from, And for me, I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve, and playing professional is enough. God has blessed me, and I'm very grateful. So yeah.
Wow, mate, that's there's so much to talk about in your story. Thank you, firstly, for sharing that with us. And I think anyone who's watching would be inspired by what you've come through. And I think just listening to your story, I agree with you. A lot of people wouldn't appreciate the depths of what you've sort of climbed up. Coming from, as you said, the only one to have finished matric and the only one to sort of have not dropped out or got into gangs. A lot of people don't appreciate how difficult that is. So,
it's very different. Yeah, it's very.
How old were you when you saw that Brian Abana try?
I was in grade 4. I think it was grade 4. Yeah, I think it was in grade 4.
So you hadn't really played or experienced rugby at all at that point.
I was a soccer player, full-on soccer player. I wanted to play for my country. I never knew nothing about rugby. When I thought of rugby, I thought of it as NFL with helmets and stuff. To me, it was like very foreign. And when on SABC, what happened was they used to televise the games for free. You didn't have to have DSTV or pay-per-view or anything. And That's all we had to watch was just rugby because that was all they were playing.
Ah,
And eventually it got to a point where we just sat at home and we just started watching rugby, and none of us understood rugby. We just saw it when the ref blew and everyone was cheering. We just started cheering too. And when Brian Banner, like as a kid, when I saw him, like the way he dove, it seemed like he was Superman to me. You know, it was like because they kept on playing on the replay, they kept on playing over and over on the highlights, and I was like, whoa, this guy is like he's next level. So what I'll do, my mom sends me, I'll just literally come back into the house. We stayed like in one bedroom, and then when the door opens, I'll just like jump onto the bed, and my mom will start shouting at me. And I'm like, no, I'm Brian a Banner, I'm Brian a Banner. And then like my mom's like, listen, for the Brian a Banner, just don't break my bed.
that's amazing to hear. That, you know, like what you don't see that, you know, the impact of professional sports people, what type of role models they can have and really inspire the next generation. You know, have you gotten to meet him and speak to him in person since you've become a professional rugby player?
Yeah, so basically, Super Sports shot a documentary for me once about my life, and it was weird. While I was on air talking about this whole documentary they shot, they said, "Oh, someone wants to speak to you." And then I looked back. There was a screen of Brian Banner. I was like, "Hi, Chief, how you doing?" And I was just like you know, I was like a groupie. And we started like he called me and we spoke, and like you know, it was like life changing for me because he was like the guy that made me stop playing rugby. And for him to like talk to me, it's like, "Oh, I saw your try last week. Oh my gosh, you're so quick." You know, it was like life changing.
Amazing. So I will get to some of the Jewish part in a minute, but I just want to just ask a few more things about the rugby. I remember that I was still living in South Africa in 1995, and I remember, you know, when we won the World Cup, and I remember going down. I lived in Johannesburg and going down to Louis Botha Avenue, and it was just it. And you can see there's a movie Invictus, and obviously the
Yeah.
history of it really uniting the country, and obviously Mandela had a big part in that. But I'm just wondering, you know, how do you feel rugby is now within the black community? Obviously, traditionally soccer has been the main sport. Do you think it's changing and continue to change as time moves on?
Yeah, so what's happening now in South Africa, it's very tricky because most townships don't have rugby. Most black communities don't have rugby, and rugby is only like in the Eastern Cape. Rugby is they play rugby because guys like Sia Kolisi, guys like most of the professional rugby's go back and give back to the community, and rugby becomes the only sport that sponsors them because soccer just like leaves them and they get kicked and stuff from rugby, so they start playing rugby. And I wasn't gonna play rugby if it wasn't for Brian Abana that inspired me, and I wasn't gonna be where I am now if it wasn't for the school I went to. And I feel like the school that you go to plays a big role in how you're going to become as a rugby player because the school gave me a platform to showcase my talent. If it wasn't for the school, I wasn't going to be able to compete against the best of the best and showcase my talent, you know. And all the guys I played with in the beginning haven't made it because they stayed at the school they were at, you know, they were not exposed. So in
Right.
the black community, yeah, in the black community, rugby is like everyone wants to play rugby, but it's still that that phobia, you know, they see it and like, no, it's because every time I tell people I play rugby, the first thing is like, doesn't it hurt? Isn't it sore? Don't you, what happens when this happens? What happens if you break your leg? And like I had an operation 3 months ago, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, see, that's why you shouldn't play rugby. You know, it's still like a foreign thing to them. They love seeing it, especially now after the World Cup. You know, it was like huge. Now many kids want to play rugby. Many kids like contact me. They ask me how to start. You know, it's like common questions. What position should I play? And it's no, it's good to see.
Absolutely. And tell us about your like your training regimen. Is it competing at that professional level? Is it a whole game changer? Is it a totally different regime for you? And has it been
Yeah,
really
yeah. No, so for like the difference between because when I played at school, you know, it was very nice. We enjoyed it. It was, you know, you get a guy that's good, you get a guy that's not so good. He's just doing it to get colors. You get a guy that's just doing it to make his parents proud. You know, it was like different guys played rugby for different reasons. You know, so you'd always stand out if you were serious in rugby at school. But when it got to like professional rugby, everyone treats it like life and death, you know, because it's my job. If I don't make it now, my family won't eat, you know. That's the type of mentality guys have. So guys don't take it personal, but guys are out there to. So a guy can come and greet you, but in his heart, he's wishing that you don't play next week. He wants to play above you. So it's like the margin of error is very, 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 very like small, because guys, everyone can pass, everyone can run, everyone is fit. So what's your X factor? What makes you different? Why should they pick you? So it's like very, 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 very competitive when it comes to being professional. Like now, we both the same players, but now it gets to a point where, just one small thing like leadership will play a big role. Oh no, he's more of a leader than you. Now you're not playing for 3 to 4 years because you're behind him, and that's how competitive it gets.
So how do you manage that type of stress, and what do you personally do? How do you get through that?
Yeah, no, it's just old school SWOT analysis. For me personally, what happens is that I call it the circus trick, your circus act. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? When you go to a circus, everyone has a circus act and that they're good at, and they practice that circus trick over and over and over until they perfect it. And that's what I try to do. I feel like there's things that I have that other people don't have, and there's things other people have that I don't have. So me trying to be like them is not going to work. So I should just stick to what got me, and that's how I play. And I just work on that. And I always feel like if it's meant to be, if Hashem believes that that's how the journey is supposed to be, and then that's how it's supposed to be. I don't try to change my destiny. I just go with the flow and just work hard.
I love it, and that's probably what makes it. You seem like a really chill type of guy. You just take it as it comes. But I'm sure we're not seeing the amount of work you put into actually having to, be an elite athlete, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Trust me. It's people don't see it. People only see like the end product on the field, and they're like, oh, so crap. So, and the week before, it's like the craziest thing. You get home, you're just exhausted. And rugby's not like an office job. Office job, you're exhausted mentally. You think you're exhausted physically. In rugby, it's just physically, spiritually, everything. It's crazy.
And how much do your clubs support you? Like, do they give you a lot of help and guidance and coaches and all that type of stuff? Do they try to help make you a better player?
No, so it's quite limited there, because one thing about clubs is that they help you, but they don't try to get into your personal space. So they'll help you on the rugby field, with your individual skills. They'll help you with everything rugby related, but everything off the field, it's you on your own. I remember when I was still 19, being a 19-year-old, you technically on your own. You can go bad, you can go good, because you get there, you're 19, you're professional, you leave the field, everyone is praising you, you're earning a salary, you think you're a big shot. It's like there's two ways about it. You either continue working hard, or you just become complacent. And many guys fall off at a young age because they don't get that guidance off the rugby field, because you go back to your age mates and you're a hero. They look at you like, oh, you're the big guy, and that just gets to you. So it's very hard off the field because you don't get that support, but on the field you definitely get support.
Amazing. So just a little bit more about your, on the rugby side. Before, I just want to ask you a few stuff about the Jewish question. I'm getting a lot of questions sent to me that people want to ask you. But one more thing about the rugby: do you do like what your goals in rugby? Like, if someone had to ask you, what's your next thing? Are you? I mean, you said you're proud of yourself that you got to this point, and I'm sure it's a massive achievement. But where do you want to end one day when you can look back at your rugby career? What's your goal?
So personally, I just want to become the best version of myself. I feel like I'm nowhere close to my potential and what I could be. And secondly, I feel like I want to travel. I want to go around the world and visit different places and play rugby at different places, and obviously earn a lot of money so I can look after my family. But that's, most guys usually say that they play rugby because of the passion, they play rugby because of the love. There's a fine balance between everything. I feel like passion is there, love is there, but also sometimes rugby is all what we got, especially me. Rugby is all I have. After rugby is like nothing after. I have to go back to my mom, and it's based on what I've saved, So I also try to look after myself financially, put myself first, put my family first, and hopefully play Springboks, yeah.
Well, that'd be
And win the
amazing.
World
Maybe
Cup at the next thing.
if you ever come in, if you ever come in tour in Australia, mate, you got to come look. You got to come to our shul.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So cousin Greg was telling me that you've also got a bit of a side business. You got a
Yeah.
business you've started as well. So that's pretty amazing. Tell us a little about that if you can.
Yeah, so I'm very fascinated about shoes since a very young age. I always had these shoes I used to see on people. I'm like, yes, I love these shoes. How can I get them? Because I used to do like a lot of part-time jobs. I used to work at a petrol station as a kid. I work as a construction company just to add money for like school shoes and stuff. And shoes has always been my drive. And then eventually I said to myself, why don't I create my own shoes? So I just started investigating and stuff. And obviously I realized it will cost a lot of money to like start your own shoe brand. So I started importing shoes and selling shoes. And it got to a point where people started loving the shoes. So I was like, you know what, let me speak to suppliers overseas and see what they can do to help me to create my own shoes, own shoe range. And that, started very small, and now it's like growing, and it's a side business that I'm pushing like after rugby. And yeah.
That's amazing. And hopefully you can use your success in rugby to push that brand even more.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. So you're really driven. You're a driven young man. It's excellent.
Yeah, no, I don't call myself an entrepreneur. I call myself a hustlepreneur. Because like I try to do everything. I feel like if you have something for me, I'm just like, oh, let me try it out. One of my mentors actually is in Australia. I don't know, Craig Nussel. Have you heard of him?
I have heard of him. Yes.
Yeah, so he used to help me at I used to do job shadowing for him, and he used to help me at Discovery. I used to do a lot of job shadowing, so it was a good eye opener for me.
Amazing! Wow. Well, maybe we'll come back to rugby in a moment. But just obviously, a lot of us would be fascinated about your father's, Jewish, experiences, and obviously I think he's from the Igbo Jewish community in Nigeria. Is that right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in Nigeria there's an Igbo tribe in Anambra. They believe the missing tribe of Gad that left Israel with some place in Uganda, in some place in South Africa, other vendors, the Shembe tribe, Lembe tribe, sorry. So yeah, so the way they do things is very different compared to the Jewish people in Israel. They mix tradition with the religion, and yeah, that's all I can say.
Yeah, and so I mean, I came across an article that I think the Jewish Report in South Africa did a story with you. Is that right?
Yeah.
So have you visited shuls in South Africa? Have you done much of that in your time there?
Yeah, so I've been to a couple, but it's very hard, especially now with rugby. Rugby being on Saturdays to just commit and be like, okay, I'm going to shul, because I feel like a hypocrite, breaking Shabbat just to go to shul on Saturday. I feel like you just have to observe the whole thing, and I couldn't lately. It's just Fridays I'm busy, then Saturdays just like pointless.
Yeah, man. What you said earlier was very inspiring personally for me. The fact that you at times were prepared to give up some of the games for Yom Kippur or stuff like that. That would have been a big sacrifice. And how did someone's asked, and I think just in relation to this question, how did your coaches, teammates, what do they think about when you talk about Buddhism and stuff like that? Is it they not just care, or they're interested, or just everyone's got their own thing going on?
Yeah, so in rugby is very conservative. When it comes to religion, it's like everyone assumes you're Christian. So it's before you even walk into the building, everyone's like, please bow your heads, let's pray. Everyone just believes you're Christian. And when you tell them you're Jewish, first of all, when I say I'm Jewish, they look at me like, but you black. And I was like, oh yeah, I know. And then they're all like surprised. How are you Jewish? And I have to give them a lecture on Judaism and how black people can be Jewish. And they're like, oh, please, and I have to go on my phone, Google people, Google different people, and just show them, listen, this is Black G, this is a famous Black G, this is all sorts of people. And eventually gets to a point where, as I said earlier, no one listens to you until you're doing well. No one takes you serious until you're doing well. So if you can walk in there like I'm Jewish, no one cares, and you're gonna have to like adapt to their Christian views, how they do things, and they're very stern Christians. So like it's if you had to say no, I can't do this, I'm Jewish, it's like you're going against them. But then when you start doing well, eventually it gets to a point where they ask you like, oh, are you comfortable with this? We're going to a seafood place. Are you allowed to have seafood? And then you're like, no, I'm not. And they're like, oh, can you substitute with this? It becomes a more mutual respect. It's just like my personal thing is no one cares about your story until you're doing well.
Wow.
That's the reality of it.
That's the sad reality of as you become more and more famous and more important to them, they care about your needs.
Yes.
How's your
Yeah.
dad? How's your relationship with your father now? Are you guys still in touch or?
Yeah. So our relationship was very tricky. So he passed away a few years back. Our relationship was very tricky. I felt like because of religion. My dad was when I said he was very strict, like he used to take away our phones on the Thursday. We're not allowed to, the gate, you will like turn off the automatic gate. You had to, like, just like leaves the gate open, cold food was like bad. And for me, I felt like for me to be a rugby player, I had to go against his word. I felt like if I didn't go against what he believed in, I was never going to be a rugby player. And sometimes when I used to fast, I used to just pray. I said, God, deep down, I really want to follow this whole thing, but you gave me a talent and I have to follow it, And it was very hard because sometimes I just never used to come home on Friday and Saturdays because I knew that if I came back home Fridays and Saturdays, it would be a problem, because of I have a game on Saturday morning and he won't allow me to leave. So it was very, very, very tricky. And then eventually before he died, that's when we started having conversations, talking, because he started seeing me on TV. And then he started realizing that it's actually bigger than what he thought it would become. And his mates started calling him and like, oh, I saw Hacjivah on TV is playing for the South African junior team. Oh my God. And then he would be like, what South African junior team? I don't know what you're talking about. And then he would call me, he's like, what team are you playing for? And I'm like, I'm playing for South African junior team. So it would be like, and eventually when more people started coming to him, that's when he started reaching out to me and like, okay, I understand, at least you don't have to do Shabbat, but your dietary food, your food, you need to don't abandon that. Pesach, you still have to follow Pesach. He started mentioning things you still have to do. Yeah, you can still do this. Don't do that. Don't mix this food. Don't mix this, like those type of things. And then eventually I said to myself, okay, cool. I'm gonna follow everything I can follow, but the stuff that I can't follow that clashes with my work, I would just have to make sacrifices. But if it's something like a fast that happens once a year, that I feel like work can, if I'll take the pay cut, it's one of those things. And yeah.
Amazing. So cousin Greg said he actually just gave Craig Nossel a call and he sends his regards to you. Hacjivah, tell me, in terms of your position now and your, obviously, please God, you have still a bright future ahead of you, but do you think you have the ability to influence some of the younger generation of South Africans, either to try and, make the most of their lives, to try and, obviously it's so hard for so many, like you said, it's not, sometimes they don't even have the opportunity. It's not like the opportunity is there, they just need to take it. There's not even opportunity for so many. But can you use your influence and your position to try and educate the next generation?
No, yes, definitely. Like for instance, where I'm from in Cape Town in the Eastern Cape, the chances of you making it out there, it's probably like, I don't even want to say one because one is very rare. I'll probably say a half, because in order for you to make it out, your family needs to have money. It's impossible for you to make it out. And when everyone that sees me from Eastern Cape and Cape Town sees me, they're just like, how did you get there? They call me lucky because like it's impossible for someone to make it out. And especially like my older brother, he's a gangster. My cousins are gangsters. My younger brother dropped out of school, and that's just the light story about it. But when I look at my best friends that I went to school with, they're like in prison. One is serving life. One is and when I go back driving my car, going there, and the people see me, they always want to have this conversation with me, like, how is it in Joburg? How is it Is it like in TV? How is it like this? And I always give him a story of the stuff that I had to go through in order to be where I am, And I felt like one thing about suffering is that if you apply necessary pressure in trying to improve, you won't be there for long, but then when you give up and be like, I'm suffering, it is what it is, that's when you're there for long. And that's when I try to change the mindset of especially my brothers and stuff and the younger guys that I see and the friends that being born poor is not your fault, but dying poor is your fault. I felt like there's so many ways of making money, so many ways of doing things in the world, so many opportunities in doing things that you can't just chill at home and expect the government or someone to give you a handout, And especially in South Africa, we have a way of being complacent, waiting for someone to change things. And I felt like that's not going to be me, because if I have people like my mom, my 8 siblings waiting for me, my cousins, my aunts, all relying on me to give them money at the end of the month, I can't chill and wait for the government to give me money, because then none of us is going to do anything. I feel like I'm going to be the one that's going to change it so everyone else can follow.
Wow. So it's quite a big responsibility you put on your shoulders. I mean, it's amazing that you've just were driven to do that. Well done.
Yeah, thank you very much, man.
Yeah, and I think now they probably put even more and more pressure on you as you're becoming more and more successful.
Yeah, it's they say the biggest tree gets the most wind, and that's been happening. I felt like you just need to learn to say no. It's you give them what they need, don't give them what they want. It's just one of those things. And in this business that I'm in, you're not here to make friends, you're here to make a living.
Yeah. So in terms of rugby, like, is there guys at your stage? I mean, do people try and go play overseas for some time, or you're already sort of past that? Like, is there opportunities to go play rugby elsewhere in the world?
Yes, no, definitely. There's a lot of guys go to Japan because Japan pays more. Many guys do it for financial reasons, or it's because they don't get opportunities down here in South Africa and they go overseas to make a name for themselves. But mostly it's financial reasons why guys go overseas, because of the pound and the yen and all this stuff. Yeah, so it's going overseas. There's no real age of going overseas. I just know under 30 is like the safe option.
Yeah. Is that something you would want to do, or?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm looking at going overseas one of these years. Yeah, I just don't know where yet.
When I was studying in university, I was doing a master's in counseling and psychotherapy, and one of my fellow students did a thesis on sports, professional sports people and injuries and how that plays on their mental health. So I know you said you were just finishing, you just had surgery not too long ago. And someone actually asked, Jody asked, how's your knee going, your meniscus knee up? How's that going, and how did that affect you, like mentally and emotionally?
Yeah, no, it's very tough. I won't lie, because especially the time for me, it came during the pandemic, and so a lot of things been happening. A lot of you can't move, you can't do anything. So I said to myself, let me just go for an up. I went for this up, and mentally, you just feel excluded from everything because you can't move, you can't do anything. No one sends you messages. The team doesn't. It's not like when you're playing, the team sends you a message. Oh, did you get this play? Or did you see the gym program? Or did you see this? Like no one talks to you. It's like you're excluded. It's like you don't even play rugby anymore. It feels like it actually makes you realize how your life would be after rugby.
Wow.
That's the scary part. It's like you actually, when the lights go off, that's how your life is going to be after rugby, where there's no one to reach out for you. The only time people reach out to you is when it's time for you to go apply for a job, or when someone needs something. And it was very tough because I also went through a pay cut because of everything going on, and like it was like very scary, trust me. And my contract is ending this year, so a lot of things been playing in my head. I'm thinking, what's my next plan? With the whole lockdown, I couldn't import, export, so my business was like struggling, and then it's like everything was just happening at once, and I just, as I started getting better, started training, I just told myself, stick to your principles, stick to your goals, control what you can control, and leave everything else to God. And that's what I can do.
I love that. And so when do you anticipate playing again?
Yeah, so I should be back next month for the new competition. Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yeah, now I'm very excited.
Yeah, and so does your club help you with the recovery, getting back in shape and fit again and all that?
Yeah, no, the club does help you. They have like allocated physios for you that will help you and that you see every day. But most of the work is basically on your own. You see the physio for like 40 minutes, and then you have nothing to do. You know, it's just like you're kind of useless. And if I sometimes I look at my life, I feel like if I had like a degree or something that I could have went and did a part-time job, and maybe work on what I want to do if I was a lawyer, do my articles or something. But unfortunately, life doesn't work like that. You have to work with what you were dealt. Yeah.
Where do you train when you need to train now, like in Corona times? How do you stay in shape and getting fit again? Can you go to rugby fields and that, or?
Yeah, no, it's kind of hard now because you can't just go anywhere because you don't want to put people at risk, and because now you don't want to be the carrier of the virus. So I just go to the union, to the stadium, and when the guys like 6 o'clock in the morning, I know there's no one there. I just gym, and when the guys start coming, pack my bags, and then I just leave. So everything just feels so excluded, but it's just the world we're in now.
Yeah, it's a tough world, mate. And I'm sure it's not easy, at a professional, at an elite level, trying to balance all the different pressures that you have.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So if you could tell us a little bit about maybe just one or two more things, and we really appreciate your time with us today. But obviously, coming from South Africa, and fortunately the country was able to really beat apartheid, beat racism in a big way. Where do you see the future of South Africa? Like you as a young, leading the charge of a successful young man who's really come from nothing. Do you believe in a bright future there in South Africa? How do you see the future there?
Yeah, I don't want to talk much into politics, but one thing I've had this chat with many of my mates. I felt like the people in South Africa in power don't represent us as South African. They don't represent us as the youth. They don't represent us as the new South Africa. They're based on they trying to make up for all the time they've spent during apartheid. They're trying to make money from that. So they feel like they've been there for long. So now it's time for them to coin in and make a living. But I feel like in order for South Africa to change, we need the new South Africa in power. The new youth, the new, guys like me that has seen diversity, seen being with like I live with my guardians and they from Israel, and I'm diverse. I'm the new South Africa. So I feel like in order for us to move forward as a country, we need to not forget but acknowledge what has happened and try to build rather than using everything as a scapegoat. And I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like if you look at the people in power in South Africa, the average age is above 60, and they attend seminars for 2040, and they're not even going to be around for 2040, but they're speaking on behalf of us. That's things that confuses me. But yeah, we live, we learn, and hopefully I told myself, one day if I make enough money, I would definitely do like go around to schools, talk, try to empower kids, empower guys that I know are possible in getting to leadership roles, and just have a conversation, where he tells your story, I tell my story, and everyone from different groups. One thing I've learned in South Africa is that we think we know people's stories, but we actually just judge based on what we know. We don't know, and like no one know, people see me every day, but they don't know what I've eaten. They don't know where I come from. They don't know what I've been through, but they just see me, and they just assume based on what they see and what they hear. So I feel like we can just know each other's stories and just talk. I think that'll make a massive difference.
Love it, mate. So maybe if after rugby, I think you got a career in being a leader in South Africa. I think you would. I think you would inspire a lot of South Africans, mate. I think you would do well there. But first do your rugby thing, I think, and then.
Yeah. No.
Someone's asked, did you ever experience any anti-Semitism going as a professional rugby player or just in general in South Africa?
Yeah, the one thing it's in rugby, it's a thing that people turn a blind eye to, but there is racism. Like there's racism, there's anti-Semitism, and especially being black and Jewish, it's like the double bullets for me. And I always say to people always make it seem that when they approach you and they insult you, they always make it seem as like it's a joke. They come across as a joke. They want it to come across as a joke, but they have a double meaning to it. So they're like, "Oh, hey, Jew boy," and I look at the guy, I'm just like, those Africans, they're like calling me Jew boy. What are you trying to achieve? And they'll make jokes on like Hitler jokes, or like, "Oh, hey, I have a Jewish joke," and I'm just like, "But I don't want to hear it." And they're like, "No, but you have to do it." And I'm just like, "Is that necessary?" No, and you hear it often. You hear it like, I don't know. It's something that people have to like. I don't know if you have to educate people or you have to let people know that what they're doing is wrong. Because I think just telling them no, it's not going to help. And in rugby, it's not often that you see Jewish people play rugby. Professional rugby. And so it's like a new thing, especially for me, coming into rugby and saying I'm Jewish. It's like, "Oh, you're Jewish. Oh, wow." And then it's like, you're one of one. So to them, it's like they've never had a past experience of a Jew. They don't know what hurts you. They don't know what offends you. So to them, it's just jokes, and they make like German jokes and all this stuff. And I'm just like, so it's crazy out there.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, I think there's some who are doing it vindictively, but some who are just naive and just not educated to understand, that's what they're saying is offensive. Not only in this regard, in any comes to racism, sexism, all sorts of things.
No.
Sometimes people hear what they hear at home as kids, and they don't get taught what's right. So sometimes we have to just call it out. So I think it's great that you're representing and just saying, "Mate, it's not good to say this joke."
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, it's very. Sometimes I don't blame people. Like I've been to Shules, for instance, where I walk in and everyone just looks at me like, "What are you doing here?" It's like weird, and I don't blame them because it's new to them. It's different. It's just like going to a township and a white person walks in. It's just like, "What are you doing here?" It's when the roles are reversed, you can see it's just based on perspective. A perspective. So I would literally go to people and say, "Listen, I'm Jewish, and I've told my story," and then they'll understand. And I'm like, "Oh, my dad's Jewish," and they're like, "Oh, but you're not Jewish," and I'm like, "But technically I am." And then it's like, a whole debate, and it all comes down to how you see things, how you see your perspective of things.
And I agree with you. I mean, I remember when I went to it's called the Torah Academy Boys High School, and I remember we used to get American yeshiva students used to come and learn there every year. There'd be like 60 or 70, and there was a young African American who was Jewish. He became, his parents converted, 2 generations ago. So by the time he was born, his parents already been. I remember him coming to South Africa. This was, 25 years ago, whatever it is. A young black guy coming with a full beard, black hat, religious garments. And I remember like all the kids were looked at him like, "What are you doing here?" And even the black staff that worked at the school, they didn't know what was going on. They were like, "How could you be Jewish?" Like for them, it was just a total. And then fortunately, it was great for the community to, to understand that Judaism is not a color. You know what I mean? Judaism is a religion. And you're right. And unfortunately, at times people, because they're not used to it, they make judgments. They make, naive statements and so on. So I feel bad that when you've walked in that people do turn their eyes to you, but hopefully they'll learn next time not to do that.
No, definitely.
Just a couple more questions. I just want to see if anyone's written. Someone's just saying there were a number of Jewish rugby players, Wolf Rosenberg, Kalmina, cousin Greg's naming all the Jewish rugby players, Sid Nomis. I don't know. But anyway, well, here's the next one in you. So any parting words you'd like to share with us? What's your message to the world today? Like if people are feeling a little bit down, feeling a little bit, they can't get maybe things haven't worked out as well, whether you're a professional sports person or anything. But maybe if you have any message for people who want to become professional sports people, what's your message to them?
Yeah, so I have a message for sports and a message out of sports, because like I always say, rugby is what I do. It's not who I am. So outside of rugby, I'm a Hacjivah, and I'm a guy that plays rugby, not a guy that is rugby.
Love that.
So yeah, so for me, everything's a mindset. I feel like we underestimate the mind and what the mind is capable of. I feel like we limit ourselves based on what our eye sees, and we think that is where things can go just because we see it and we feel like, oh, it's difficult. And I don't believe in luck, to be honest. I feel like my path has been put down based on my religious belief. I feel like my life has been put down, and it was meant to go that way, to show people that it's possible. If when people say don't believe in God, and I'm just like, let me tell you my story, and then you tell me if you believe in God, and then they like, yeah, and I'm like, there's no such thing as luck. Luck doesn't happen more than once. It's impossible. And it's basically just the mindset. It's the same thing as I read something the other day where they said, if you put a string on the floor and you literally walk on that string and just keep on the string and just keep walking, you would walk easily. But if you take the string 10 meters up and then say to you to walk on that string, all of a sudden it becomes difficult. And it's just because of the mind. Your mind tricks you. Your mind tells you that you can fall. Your mind plays all these scenarios to you, that the bad things that could happen. And that just shows you how powerful the mind is.
Absolutely, mate. It's all about mindset. And what about those who are wanting to become sports people one day?
Yeah, so for me, with sports, one thing I've learned is that if one guy doesn't back you, doesn't mean everyone else won't back you. If you're meant to play, if you're meant to be at the highest top of rugby or sports or whatever, you are going to be there if you're meant to be there. That's how life works. No one can stop your shine. No one can switch up the candle. If it's meant to shine, it's meant to shine. And the advice I'd give people is just work on what you're good at. The moment you start seeing outside noises and try to compensate and change things, that's when you lose it. Not all of us are talented in the same way. Some guys are different, and unique in their own ways. And guys like Muhammad Ali, when they first came, they were also seen as, what are you doing? And they start their own trends, and they're famous today because of what they started that other people weren't doing. So just do what you do, and don't be scared to be different. Don't try to fit in, try to stick out. And people that fit in, no one notices you because it's like 50 of you guys. But when you stick out, it's only one of you. So they have to look. And that's my chat to guys that are trying to be professional sportsmen, is that focus on your circus act.
I love it. I love that circus act. Might be my Friday night sermon, mate. But Hacjivah, look, man, I just want to, on behalf of South Caulfield congregation, myself and Cousin Greg, and thank you, Cousin Greg, for getting in touch with Hacjivah to ask him to speak with us. And I hope you get to come tour in Australia in some level, whether it be with the Springboks or with your province. But however you come here, it'd be amazing if you can come to Australia, and we'd love to host you here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've been to Australia the past 3 years, 4 years.
And you didn't call me, mate. You didn't call me.
Yeah, I didn't actually know, but I went to Sydney, went to Melbourne, I've been to many places in Australia.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, Flip, I love Coogee Beach.
Yeah, great
Yeah,
spot.
in Sydney. I've been to Melbourne last year, the year? Yeah, it was last year, and that's when I saw Craig Russell. I visited him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I loved it. I love Australia.
So
I'm definitely going to move to Australia.
You were playing rugby, obviously, yeah?
Yeah, playing rugby. Yeah, I'm definitely moving to Australia. And I've told Craig this. I said, listen, Australia is probably one of the best countries I've been to. I feel like Australia is South Africa, but a working version of South Africa.
That's a good description.
So, yeah, so I'm definitely, in a few years, I'll definitely be in Australia. Hopefully start a business there.
Awesome, mate. And you can come to our Shule. Maybe you can get on our Shule board.
Thanks, man.
But thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for your words. Thank you for joining us and giving us of your time. I know your time is precious, and yeah, I think anyone who watched this live will certainly have been enriched by just being inspired by you hearing. I just love your attitude and your, just your positivity about life, about believing in yourself, and just standing out, as you said. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, man, for having me. This was a nice experience.
Yeah, look, it's a pity, obviously, if we had you in the flesh. Obviously, people could talk.
Yeah.
Just with Zoom, as you know, it gets very, it gets a bit complicated if everybody talks. So thank you, everyone, for posting questions. I apologize if I missed anyone's question, but I think Hacjivah gave us a lot of different aspects of his career, his Judaism, his experience about South Africa, and yeah, what a wonderful evening. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, man.
And just let everyone know, next Wednesday night, we actually have we're fortunate to host one of the members of Knesset, Omi Yankelevich. She's the Minister for Diaspora Affairs. So Wednesday night, 8 o'clock on Zoom. And yeah, we hope you can join us. So once again, thank you, everybody. Wishing you a wonderful night. And we look forward to seeing you again. So Laila Tov, and once again, Yashar Koach and Kol HaKavod to Hacjivah for tonight. Thanks, Haz and Greg.
Pleasure. That was awesome, Rolf. Shukayach.
Yeah, he was
And
amazing.
Hacjivah, amazing.